begin our last Bible study that is going to be broadcast from here in Joliet. Let's go ahead and begin with a word of prayer. Gracious Lord, we give thanks to you for this time that we have had together, and we ask that you continue to bless us in these future days. In your name we pray. Amen. And so if you're looking in the background of my picture here, and you're thinking, boy, Pastor, your office is messier than normal, you'd be right. For those of you who did not tune in last week, but are tuning in this week, I have taken a call to another congregation, and so I'm in the process of moving. Everything that was inside my desk is now outside of my desk, as it slowly makes its way into boxes. They tell you it's something to watch your life go inside of a box. And there's a lot of them. I was just telling Gary earlier that I was doing a count last night, and we'd just been packing books. I had 42 boxes already packed with books, and we weren't even close to done.
You don't have your truck in here, do you?
No, the truck doesn't arrive for a while. But in the meantime, we still got Proverbs. And guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to print out for you guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, we can listen.
Okay, picking up at Proverbs 24, verse 13. My son, eat honey, for it is good, and the drippings of the honeycomb are sweet to your taste. Know that wisdom is such to your soul. If you find it, there will be a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Okay, I have to say this right off the bat. The Bible is not mandating eating honey. It's sad that I have to say something like that, but I know that there's going to be somebody out there who's going to look at this proverb and say, we should be eating honey, and that's what we should be using. Because the Bible said it is good to eat.
No, it's a good thing.
Yeah. What's going on here is this proverb is highlighting how wonderful wisdom is. It's taking something that we know to be good and tasty and comparing wisdom to it. It is saying that is in its heart that wisdom is good and tasty. Also, honey is frequently used in conjunction with the idea of blessing. We can go back to the Promised Land, when the people were coming out of Egypt. The way that the land that the Lord was giving to them was described is that it was called the land flowing with milk and honey. It was a way of describing this place as being a place that is full of plenty. That there's nothing that you're going to want. It's going to take care of all of your needs. And that is the idea that is being drawn here. Honey is this thing that is good. And wisdom is like that. It's going to give to you that which is good. It will be sweet to your taste. It will be good for you. In a sense, we could look at it that as honey sweetens all that it comes into contact. So is wisdom going to sweeten all that it's going to come into contact with. And it does so because it provides for and builds faith. Again, we go back to that statement here in 14. Know that wisdom is such to your soul. So honey is good. It is sweet to the taste. Wisdom is good for your soul. It is sweet to your soul, as it is feeding your soul. And so the idea that is being put forth here is not so much that God is mandating go out and eat honey, which is honestly for myself I can say is a mandate that I could get behind. And I love honey.
When Jesus rose, they gave him fish and honeycomb. Remember? He said, "Do you have any food here?" And they gave him honeycomb and fish.
I remember the bread and I remember the fish. I just don't remember the honeycomb.
Yeah, I just read it the other day.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know why, but that's what they gave him.
Well, that would go into bread.
Yeah, I was gonna say they needed it for the bread,
Probably.
and also depending on the fish, it may need that too.
It could have been unleavened bread.
I don't know if it would have been unleavened by that point, because I think the feast was over for that.
It would have been a starter.
So they probably and it could have been leavened bread. But anyhow, so the idea here is to draw a comparison, not mandate. It's kind of funny the way people will look for rules in the Bible to obey. And some of it, I think, is either related to or comes from. I can't say if it correlates or if it's a causation. The idea the Bible is basic instructions before leaving Earth. And so this idea that it's relaying to you instructions, say a recipe book or the instructions to building your kids' toys.
Well, I heard that the law is built into us like a default setting, but the gospel's a surprise to us.
That is a reasonable explanation. That the law is built into us as a default setting, but the gospel is a surprise to us. And that does go back to the statements God makes that the law is going to be inscribed upon our hearts. And in some ways, I think it goes to the fact that we want to be able to self-justify. And so we want to look for rules that we can obey. And at the same time, it's going to be, a way that our sinful nature twists the law. It takes a good thing and it twists it so that it becomes a detriment to us. Because the law never promises. The law can never give life. But,
It always accuses.
yeah. Alright, moving onwards. Proverbs 24:15-16. Lie not in wait as a wicked man against the dwelling of the righteous. Do no violence to his home. For the righteous falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in times of calamity. Okay, we can summarize this in one line. Don't be evil.
That's a good one.
Yeah, seriously. Don't be evil. It's a shame Google dropped that as their motto.
If you remember one thing only, don't be evil.
Yeah, don't be evil. I really, that's what it is. You have this statement. Don't be like the wicked man. Don't do violence. And that really is just don't be evil. Sometimes Proverbs feels like a parent just going, "Can you stop being bad for just 5 minutes?"
An interesting though with Proverbs is sometimes you think you're doing such a great job, and then you come across a verse in Proverbs and you go, "Ooh, I better rethink what I was thinking."
Yeah, that actually happens quite frequently with the law. The statement is you can think you'd be doing a great job, and then you'll come across a passage in Proverbs and go, "Oh, maybe I wasn't doing so hot after all." Really, the law is going to work like that. I go back to this one frequently. You have this exchange between Jesus and the young rich man, where the young rich man asked Jesus, "What must I do to inherit the kingdom of heaven?" And Jesus responds, "Well, what is written in the law?" And he gives Jesus basic explanation, and then he goes, "Well, I've done all these things." And then Jesus responds, "Okay, you still lack one thing. Go and sell all that you have and give it to the poor, and follow me." There's always that one more thing. I'm sure the young man did a fantastic job of honoring his mother and father. I'm sure he did a fantastic job of remembering the Sabbath day, and he probably did a pretty good job of not using the Lord's name in vain and other things. But there's always that one more thing. The law is going to pick it out. Oh, it's going to battle. And so you can think, oh, I've been doing pretty good, and then realize, oops, yeah, I'm not doing so good here. That's what the law does.
And then we have a conscience that can be adjusted wrong.
Yeah.
You can be too sensitive.
I don't know if there's such thing as being too sensitive.
Like feeling condemned all the time.
That is definitely somebody who needs to hear the gospel.
Right. I believe so.
In a very real sense, I know that people cringe at this idea, but we should be living in a place where we constantly feel that condemnation, but at the same time we feel the
Our faith in Christ.
the elation of the forgiveness that God has.
Right. No condemnation for those who are in Christ.
I in some ways, we should exist within that tension. One, it's good to feel that condemnation because it drives us back to the gospel.
Right.
And two, we do need to be made aware of the places that we do need to change. I know the current philosophy is that in psychology is that shame is a bad thing. Shame's not always a bad thing. If you did something wrong and you feel shame for doing that thing wrong, then it is rightful shame. And the question is it rightful shame or is it wrongful shame? But
What would it be if you owned it and claimed it rightful, as opposed to trying to justify it?
What makes it rightful is, did you actually do what you're ashamed of? If you actually
on the cross with Christ, he said, "We did something wrong."
Yeah.
He didn't.
As an example of rightful or wrongful shame, say as a kid you stole a candy bar from the little display by the cash register. Later, you feel ashamed that you did so. That is rightful shame. Wrongful shame is more along the lines of what happens, particularly in cases of abuse, where, say, your abuser does something to you and then says you deserve this. Or that it is your fault this happened. That this particular thing that I did to you, it is your fault. So you are an innocent party, and then you're being given shame for something that was not something you did. That would be the difference between right and wrong shame. Alright, now moving back to our passage here. And for the righteous will fall 7 times and rises again, but the wicked will stumble in time's calamity. We have the promise of the resurrection in this passage also. We can see it right here with the rises again, with the resurrection. We also can see hints of what Jesus responds to Peter when Peter asks, "How many times should I forgive my brother should he sin against me?" Peter says 7 times. You do have to wonder, did he get his number 7 from this passage?
Maybe he did.
Which is entirely possible. You can't rule it out. But then you get Jesus' response. I say to you not only 7 times, but 7 times 70. So it's for the righteous, our life is essentially, It's not that we are living a perfect life, it is we are living a forgiven life. In fact, really ought to make that plain here. This is a forgiven life, not a perfect life, but a forgiven one. And a forgiven life is something of a cycle. I know Pastor Schlette refers to this as the dying and rising again. We die in confession, we rise again in absolution. That is essentially what is being described here. The righteous falls 7 times and rises again. The righteous falls 7 times, recognizes that they fell, confesses that they fell, and in the forgiveness of that sin, they are resurrected again. You could also look at it in terms of, say, in light of the sermon that I had last weekend, where I was stating that the prophecy from Ezekiel, the Valley of the Dead Bones, is essentially a prophecy of what happens every time the word of the Lord is proclaimed, because it is a description of what the Spirit is doing with the word of the Lord. So we can, this righteous life is a life of